held recently resolved.
And that brings to a close questions for oral answer. I call on Government Order of the Day number 1.
Appropriation 2012-13 Estimates Bill. Adjourned debate on second reading and amendment proposed thereto.
The Honourable Anne Tolley.
Mr Speaker, I stand in this House proud to be a member of the John Key-led government, proud to acknowledge our coalition partners with the Honourable Peter Dunn and the Honourable Peter Sharples and the Honourable Tariana Turia, and thank them for their help. And I want to congratulate our Finance Minister, Bill English, on the 2012 budget. Mr Speaker, a very sensible budget, a very sensible budget that addresses the 4 key focus areas that this John Key-led government has identified. So firstly, Mr Speaker, responsibly managing the government's finances. Why is that important for a government? Well, at this time, when we are still working our way through a global recession, when we are dealing with our second largest city having been largely destroyed by a series of earthquakes, there is no more important time for a government to be focused on managing responsibly the finances of this country. And we have done that by protecting the most vulnerable in our communities from some of the sharper edges of that recession. We have not seen in this country the austerity measures that other countries around the world have had to implement, and we have maintained our frontline services, our extra, when we have seen, in fact, a growth in frontline services of people like police, doctors, nurses and teachers right across the years of this recession. The second area is, of course, building a competitive and productive economy. And we have seen an extra 60,000 new jobs created in our community over the last 2 years. Now, the opposition doesn't seem to understand, actually, government doesn't create jobs. The jobs that government creates, the opposition created when they were in power, and when times got tough, they were unsustainable. So we need businesses to grow. We need New Zealand employers to decide to take on more staff and grow their businesses, and we are creating an environment and a framework that will enable them to do that. The third area is to deliver better public services. These are better services for New Zealanders that they pay their taxes to get, and we've heard from the Minister of Health just one area where we have seen a dramatic turnaround, where 4 years ago people were waiting. In fact, they had to fly women to Australia to get cancer treatment, whereas now they are receiving that cancer treatment within 4 weeks. And this government, of course, fully funded Herceptin for women younger women largely, family women, who were having to pay enormous amounts of money under that previous government. And the fourth area, of course, is rebuilding the Greater Christchurch area. Now, I have a quote on my wall. It's been there for some years. It is attributed to that great Roman politician. I know some of my colleagues have been quoting literacy examples. Well, actually, I want to go back further, because Cicero, that great Roman politician, author and orator, who lived 106 BC, he is supposed to have said, the budget should be balanced, the treasury should be refilled, public debt should be reduced, the arrogance of officialdom should be tempered and controlled, the assistance to foreign land should be curtailed lest Rome become bankrupt. People must again learn to work instead of living off public assistance. That was written over 2,000 years ago, and not much has changed. I put it to you that not much has changed. So as I said, why is it important that New Zealand government balances its books? Why is it important that we get into surplus in 2014? So that New Zealanders have options, of course. Why else would we want to do that? We don't want to be beholden to overseas lenders. We want to be able to manage our own country and that create good options for our New Zealanders. Now, the Labour, New Zealand First and the Greens simply do not get, and Cicero again I quote, "To be ignorant of what happened before you were born is to be ever a child." That's a pretty accurate description, I have to say. You cannot keep spending money. You cannot keep spending money. If you haven't earned it, you can't spend it. I beg your pardon, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure that you would spend money before you have earned it, Mr. Speaker. But Labour, New Zealand First and the Greens seem to have this cost plus mentality. You keep doing all the things that they keep wanting to do all the things that they have been doing, even when they're ineffective, and continue to spend more. So we have seen that opposition oppose every single change that this government has tried to make. Every time we have said, this program isn't working, we're going to stop doing this working because we're getting no results from this, we've seen the opposition cry out, put up some poor innocent person or child as an individual case to show that that program should not be cut. We have seen our public service look deep into the way that they operate. We have managed to produce some fantastic public service results without extra money, by looking at our back room, by looking at where there's duplication, by looking at where programs are ineffective. In other words, they're not getting results and stopping them. And clearly, the opposition cannot comprehend that method of working. And that says that they do not deserve to have hold of the Treasury benches. That says they cannot be trusted with other people's money, because it isn't government money, it's taxpayers' money. And taxpayers deserve to have a government that recognises and values it is someone else's money that they are spending. And they don't understand that sitting over on those benches, and that's why they'll be there for quite some time to come. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about some examples where two departments in particular have looked deep within their resources and managed to produce extra services with the same and similar amounts of money. The first is the police. So the police are looking at how they are operating, how they manage their resources. They are looking to get good intelligence. They are looking to work in a 21st century environment, and they can do things smarter and better, and they don't need to keep having extra dollars put into them. And that's a simple way. Every household around New Zealand is looking at that. Well, our police, I think, are doing a fantastic job. I want to come to corrections, Mr. Speaker, because we made some announcements in Budget 2012 around the Corrections Department. They also look deep within their organisation, and they have found savings to offer up to change the way that we deal with the people who are either in prison or serving sentences out in the community. We are spending $65 million over the next 4 years on a radical new way of addressing crime in our communities. And that is saying if 27% of people who leave prison come back within 12 months, then we have to keep our communities safe by reducing that by a quarter. By reducing it by a quarter. That's an enormously difficult target to have set. But the Corrections Department have set it because they believe that by addressing alcohol and drug addiction, 33,000 offenders will get access to drug and alcohol addiction services. 33,000. The previous Labor government struggled to provide that to 500. For the first time, offenders who are on remand will get access to those services, and to education services, and to trade skills and workplace. For the first time ever, those remand prisoners will have access to that. The Labor government was there for 9 years and was never able to provide that. They didn't try, and they had all the money to spend. At a time when there isn't a lot of money to spend, the Corrections Department have said, we can do things better. We can find the money by digging deep, by looking at where the duplication is, by stopping things that don't work and investing money in things we know will work. And the drivers of crime work that this government has done tell us drug and alcohol addiction, that is one of the main features for reoffending. Poor education, 9 years that government was in power and watched whilst 1 in 5 students left school not able to read or write. Many of them are in our prisons. Many of them are in our prisons. So, Mr. Speaker, this government knows well how to look deep, make the changes that you need to make, and how to balance our budget.
I call the honourable member Grant Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was interesting to hear